You can hedge your bet on a clean Corvette to keep you right on time. Now if you're ready to dive into overdrive, the green lights are on. It's like you're running a race on some high octane. Every time you reach your goal, won't you take that ride on heavy then?
Man, I wish I could do the fade out a lot better and go into my laugh, but I've got to push all the buttons at the same time. And I guess what I'm trying to tell you is I'm a derelict. Do you hear me before I go on to my opening rant? I don't see my, okay, because I don't see my things going up and down. I'm telling you, the sounds have been hell. So before I do anything today, I would just like to welcome you back to the Ogre's main channel. It's been 95 days. I do want to say something, though, and this is going to sound, I don't care how it sounds. I'm going to say it because Hazel at YouTube, I was communicating with another human being, and then Hazel picked this up about 5 days ago when I found out I couldn't do the scheduled We're Back Bitches with Lord Quinn and the Acidy Squirrel. We had, I mean, there may have been even some other YouTubers I won't name right now because it'll sound pretentious of them that we're going to swing by that day. Didn't work out. And so I was very polite, very polite. I'm not going to screen share everything, but I said, hey, you know, Hazel, now that you're on this, maybe you could help me. And she told me about how, oh, she understood how it felt. And I was feeling in my heart, no, she doesn't. She doesn't have a YouTube channel. She don't give a shit. And then I got the last one back, and it said, Laughing Ogre, I understand that it is very difficult when you go on your channel and you can't stream and everyone's telling you that they can't resolve copyright issues, and it seems like such a big runaround. It's such a horrible thing. And once I got there, folks, my heart sunk. I was like, oh, you're going to tell me I'll never be able to stream on this channel again, which I love. We, Common Sense Guy and I, the Britisher, many others that we won't name, but us three mainly, and the first two that I mentioned the most, worked very hard on this platform and tried to make it what it is, tried to be here and have some kind of reach if it's small, even though it is small. And then I read on, and there was no conjuncture. There was no therefore. There was no but to turn me around. It was only a really cool girl named Hazel from YouTube saying, since I know this is difficult, I have taken the liberty to turn your live stream back on. Go ye therefore and sin no more. So thank you so much, Hazel. I'm sure you'll never see this. I do have a feeling you may have looked at a couple of my videos. Thank God the last couple were farming so that's it, folks. I did my diatribe before I introduced everybody. So good to be back. So glad that you're here. Go tell your friends, tell your enemies, tell everybody that you know. Bring them on over. We're gonna have a good conversation today. And I have with me Moz, the meme master, Sharadi, Mr. Appleyard, a newbie here, one of Common Sense Guy's mates from the UK. And as always, and most important, I will kick it off now to the Common Sense Guy.
Yay, I'm alive and we're fine and we're free. And it's good to be back on the channel where everything originated from. And yeah, it's really good. I'm really happy being back on the Yogi's channel. Simply because he's got more followers than me, and he's a bastard because of it.
Well, at least a third of those are your followers anyway, sir. So
we're getting there. We're getting there. The good thing is we're going to have a little bit of fun tonight, and just remember that even though it says that it's a Quinspercy or a conspiracy night, doesn't mean that we believe in the stuff that we're talking about. But if you're going to be a generalized skeptic, you have to actually have an open mind to be able to put yourself in other people's positions. This is more of a thought experiment, so don't think that we all believe in it. It's just a case that we have to put ourselves in other people's positions. Otherwise, what's the point in fucking saying it?
Yes.
I believe.
Yeah, and Moz, Moz, we have an opener here, but I just want to thank you for coming by. Before we kick it right off into the Tommy Robinson conspiracy, I'm feeling antsy, folks. So if anybody's got some small talk before this, we can do that. I just want to get into this thing that Sharadi brought to my attention. But Maz, before we do that, is anything that I'm only asking you because you're an interesting fellow to me. and a lot of the times what you have to say is also provoking. Um, what's been going on with you? Is there something vibrating around in the synapses of your mind that is just dying to come out into the greater world?
Dying in general is a good thing because I just keep looking at what's going on and it's just getting worse. It is just getting worse. It's got to the point now where, for the sake of diversity, they've removed the egg from the salad emoji to be more inclusive to vegans, and I just I can't see how we're going to get lower. I'm sorry, we don't need to talk about it, but I'm just.
For the idea of inclusivity, they have removed the egg from the egg salad. For the idea of inclusivity, they removed the egg from the egg salad.
Well,
to make it more inclusive for vegans.
Well, what do you call it now then? What would you call it at this point?
Shit.
Just a salad emoji, I guess. It's just insanity, absolute fucking insanity. Excuse my language, and I just can't. I don't think I can do it anymore.
Now, as I fire up this gigantic doobie of headband, I must say, Cannabis Cup winner here in Michigan. This was the Medical Cannabis Cup winner of last year. This is a clone from that particular plant. It's very good, I must say. When you say it's been removed from what, am I thinking right when I believe that this is no longer an emoji? This was
no. In actual fact, yes. Sorry, let me explain. When you look at the salad emoji, there is like half a boiled egg, or there was half a boiled egg in that picture. They've now taken that half a boiled egg out of the picture because it may offend some vegans. And now it's just a bowl of salad. These are the same species of humans that got us to the moon.
No, they're not. They're not the same species.
True. Sorry.
We're going to talk about that later tonight because maybe we've never been to the moon. I don't know. That's the big thing. And I'll tell you.
I'm going to actually have to do this one.
Yeah. Well, let's allocate just a few minutes here, my beloved interlocutors, and discuss this. By force, are we able to change the course of society or the norms of the cool things, the different nomenclature that the youth have? Let me try to put this. I'm making this is word salad I'm shooting out. What I'm trying to say is there a way? Is there a way by force, by law, or by social pressure to change what society is going to use for its symbolism? Does that make sense?
Yes, yes, it does. For me, it's not a case of being able to change a single law or putting laws into practice. It's a case of social pressure. If society puts social pressure onto people, then society will change, and socialized pressures will force that change. Putting laws into place will not force anybody to change. In fact, it will actually push people to put their backs up against it and fight for it more.
I think what you've said, Mr. Ogre, we see it every day. We see people on the streets screaming, "No, that's not what the word means. It means this," and they've been doing it for years. Since the inception of the EU and before. It's a subtle change.
So is it viable? Do you think that do you believe that their pressure is changing society? I don't want to lead any more than that. I have my own ideas and maybe I'll say them at the end.
Yes.
I actually sorry, go ahead.
No.
Well, I was going to say, I actually think they're already doing it. And I think there's an end goal, whatever it is, and they're working towards that. The people that actually have power, that actually can get the press out to the masses, they're actually doing it. And I think we can see that already.
There you go. What is the end game, Mr. Appleyard, Mr. Common Sense, Miss Shirati, whoever? What would be the end game, Maz? You brung it up. It seems like a strange game to play, I must say, to begin with. But what would be the end game?
Personally, I'm going down the conspiracy line. As I've said before, I always start at the end and work backwards. And I genuinely think their end goal is that the clever people at the top have looked and done the math, done the numbers, and they realize there are not enough resources to sustain the life and the world as it is. And they're toning back on it all. Where, restricting this, restricting that, and eventually there'll be a huge come where, the top live and the bottom don't.
Yes.
See, I would go from a slightly different point of view on that one. I would actually go to the point of it would be that the reasons why they're doing this is not to necessarily be able to call us or be able to um, force us in any particular direction. It's a case of being able to actually control us better. Because if you're able to direct things by social norms, then all you need to do is be able to do it by coercion, by influence a small number of people, say, for instance, in academia, and then change it from the levels of academia going down to primary school or down to reception or to baby care type thing, and changing the education system and changing what was to what is. And then you've got a whole different aspects of how people are going to think. And you can control people like that rather than forcibly controlling them using an internment camp, for instance. You can change the thinking without putting them into a place of forcible change.
Agreed.
Yes. So anybody else want to chime in on this before I kick it on over to Shirati? She does have something really cool to start off our conspiracy theory here on Wednesday.
Yeah, all I'd say personally, what I think they're doing is they're trying to create all these different groups now, social integrated groups, whether it's LGBT, veganism, if you can call it that, different sects of religion, even atheism. You know, they're constantly getting us to fight with one another. So you can't make a set situation. You can't make a set. Should I say? Oh, I don't know what to say about it. You can't basically. We're constantly at each other's necks. Should we put it that way? The lower classes, low middle class, the working class. We're at each other's throat constantly.
Are you saying that's by design?
Yeah, absolutely. Because then you don't question what's going on above you. Why would you look up when you've got your own shit to deal with in front of you? It's all distraction. Your telly, your Britain's Got Talent, your bloody Strictly Come Dancing, Kim Kardashian's brand new boots that costed $20,000, you know, stuff like that. They just keep you distracted constantly. And then they'll put you in certain groups, you fight with each other. That's why I don't like football in that sense. Hooliganism. You're too busy fighting against each other to know that you've been screwed over in taxes. You've been screwed over by the government. It's a force of control. You split people up, and you can control the different groups a lot easier, I find.
So the idea of collectivism in your mind then is a very bad idea then?
It all sounds like mind control to me.
And I wouldn't say collective. The problem is they put this too much emphasis on you're an individual, which is a good thing in small doses. But when you believe you are special to the fact that you don't have to cooperate with your fellow man or woman, then that's when it becomes an issue. And that's the main thing. I think that's what they're trying to do. This whole diversity in gender now, there's no gender barrier. You know what I mean? Everybody's fighting against each other.
Yeah, but isn't that the definition of collectivism, though? Because they're actually putting it into a point of we're all different, but we all have to work together.
Yeah, but they don't, though. They get, even if you're all collected, you're all the same or whatever, they still have you fighting against for someone else.
Yeah, that's why I agree with you, but isn't that the idea of collectivism in itself? Just because that you have the idea of collectivism, say for instance, you had people that wear orange shirts and you have people that wear purple shirts, you have the idea of collectivism for the orange and the purple, but because they have their collective ideologies and when they see each other, they clash. And that's the bad thing about collectivism, is the fact that they clash because they're so indoctrinated in their own ideologies of I'm an orange shirt, you're a purple shirt, we can't get on, than just thinking, well, I'm me, rather than thinking of my ideology. I think that's the reason why collectivism is a bad thing and why it's been produced so much, because we can break it down into individual sections of our, well, as feminists would say, intersectionality. You can be your black, you can be your disabled, you can be whatever. Interesting. But no, you break it all down into intersections, and it's just a case of that's the point. Because you're breaking it down into these points, you're still breaking it down into a collective ideology. You're just breaking up the collectives and making them more separate so they can force on fighting each other. Because you're bringing the idea of collectivism, but then you're breaking the idea of the collective up. And I think that's where we're all going wrong. There's so much collectivism going on that we're collectivizing in smaller groups in the collective, rather than just being individuals that are in a group.
In military terms, isn't it just simply divide and conquer?
Yes.
Pretty much.
Moz, I think your echo may have kicked up a notch. If you've
It's got a motorbike in the background.
if you've taken a
Sorry.
headphone out. No, don't be sorry. Don't be sorry. You're not sorry. So anyway, here we go. We could go on in this. This is a great idea, the collectivist idea. All of these things, sometimes I wonder why they want to bring us together yet tear us apart. But before we get carried away and this goes on for the whole 2-hour conversation, Roddy, are you ready to bring us our first story?
Well, there's two parts to the story. There's the one that I originally found, and then Irate Bear's add-on to it. The first part was said, Tommy Robinson has been reportedly moved to a prison with 71% Muslim population. Inmates were banging on cell walls last night, shouting death threats. Protests were ignored. Tommy now fears for his safety.
And where did that was from Irate Bear? Which one was that?
No, that one was originally from Paul Joseph Watson.
Okay,
Yeah.
so I'm looking at this one from George John. The last name. So I'm not sure. What I'm going to do is I'm just going to share this. The first one you said. It doesn't matter either. You just take right over. I just like to put up on screen when I can what we're.
The one that I sent you. Oh, that's the one from George Llewellyn.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. This one's probably the most important. The fact that the video that was actually done for him to say, this is the reason why I might be going to prison. This is the reason why people are going to try and put me away. Is because I'm going to.
The video that Tommy made a couple of months ago was stricken and taken down.
Yeah, for the reason of actually explaining what he was going to do, which was the fact that he was going to expose the counsellors, the social services, the police, and saying that implementing them in the actual paedophilic ring that was going on from the gangs themselves, the fact that they were implemented.
CSG, it's the first time I've ever heard of this. I mean, so
is it? I thought I was saying it for fucking ages.
Well, but I didn't. Okay, no, not. Oh, yes, you've been saying. I have not heard that he put out a video 2 months ago, or did you? Was that what you said for ages? Because if it is, yes, I blocked it out. In other words,
I put it on my video. It's that video is recorded on my video where he says I'm going to make a documentary and it's going to blow the lid off of all of this because of all the people that are part of what's going on.
All right. Well, the thing of it is too is I remember that, but what the problem is I'm not remembering hearing Tommy say I won't be around much longer. But to be honest, as I'm now dredging through the muck of my mire of my memory. Yes, I mean, he said that many times. So maybe that's why I'm not picking this up, because I've heard him say, they're going to end me for the last 5 years. Should I give less credence to it? Is this just another?
No, of course not. Of course you shouldn't give it less credence. The fact is that if they would have left the video where it was, YouTube, if they would have left the video where it was, then you could say it's more of a conspiracy theory. Why would you leave it for the 2 months and now only start deleting it? Now that he's in prison and he can't do anything about it, he can't reinstate.
Because he's a rabble rouser and now he's in prison. Maybe they just want to put it to bed.
No, because the reason why that you would have that is because you would actually have him making his points. And if the points weren't supposedly true, then you would just leave it there. It wouldn't matter. It really wouldn't matter. Just do what you want type thing. But if they are true, and like the counsellors and like the police and like the social services, you want to hide the evidence. The way you hide the evidence is the video doesn't commit to our community guidelines, even though it's been around for over 2 months and only just been deleted.
Well, but as I said now, and what I'm trying to say is okay, but it could be retroactive because at this point they examine what Tommy's been doing, and he is a muckraking rabble rouser, and now he's receiving his just punishment and he's in jail. So why would we want to glorify this guy? Let's take this down.
I think it's more of a case of they're trying to hide what he was saying. So there are no reasons why Tommy Robinson has gone to prison apart from him being a racist and breaking the law, which you all know is not actually true to that definition. It's more of a case of he was asking the police if he was doing wrong only 7 times.
With all respect, what are they trying to hide? What part of what he said are they trying to hide?
All of it. All of it. There's proof from Telford. There's proof from Rotherham. There's proof from Newcastle from an independent fucking review that I did a video on, that the police, the social services, and the council members in that area have all been implemented and actually either partaking in it or actually.
So when you say everything, I mean, obviously not everything he ever says, but you are saying now pertaining to the Muslim rape gang culture. That's what you're using.
No, not even going on about the rape gang culture. I'm not even going on about that. I'm going on about the stuff that's higher. The reason why
what's higher than that?
The reason why people don't want to talk about the Muslim rape gang is not because they're Muslims and not because they rape in that instance. It's because of the people that are protecting them, because they're using them as a ring to be able to use them as a syndicate to get what they want out of it, as they did in the 1970s and they did in the 1980s, to use the social services to fund their own sick, perverted desires. And Tommy Robinson was getting close to being able to expose that, and that's the reason why he was sent to prison.
You see what I did there, folks? I used superior interrogation techniques to play the devil's advocate and to guide my friend into explaining to you what's going on right now. So if anybody else would like to expound on this, expand on it, extol, extenuate, whatever they would like to do.
I would like to expand on this.
Go ahead. I'll give you another 2 minutes before
I feel violated. I feel violated.
Or you could let me finish what I started.
Yes, ma'am. Because we do have another section from that. Thank you for that very snide way that you said it. Also, Shirati, we will now refer to you as New Girl. Carry on.
And then Irate Bear commented on it, saying, "Okay, as far as I can tell, there is no one British prison with a Muslim population that high. There are prisons with very large Muslim prisoners," which I think he meant a very large Muslim population of prisoners. Whitmore, for example, which a few years ago was half, apparently. Either way, if he is being moved, hopefully he remains safe.
Yeah. Irate Bear, man, but just a little shout out before, because he's got no affiliation with me. I don't think he'd piss on me if I was on fire, but I got to say, shout out to Irate Bear. If you don't know who he is, I don't know how you know who I am, but if you don't, go subscribe to him, follow him on Twitter. He does great work. He's an excellent Negro from the UK. He loves the fact he's a Negro. He doesn't want you to give him any special treatment. And he is, when it comes to Dankula and this kind of thing, I got to say, boys, he is like one of the leaders of the charge that I could really get behind. So that's it. That's all I got to say. So carry on, folks. We know we got some other things to say here about this topic. Surati, why don't you start us off with your opinion, since you've been so gracious to lead us in with the actual reading of the news. What's going on here? I know that the disclaimer is that Shirati and I are Yanks, but we have opinions too.
Well, I've been in British, let's just Discord servers, and there's opinions flying left, right, and center, and I tend to agree with a good portion of them. Like one, for instance, tends to think that the government is trying to get Tommy out of the way, is the nice way of putting it.
I'll agree with that. It actually scares me that we're in a position now where the government or the powers that be have gone, whatever, he's got a big mouth, let's push him off, and they're openly doing it, and they just don't care. They don't care who knows anymore, realistically. That's the power they have.
Exactly. That's the reason why they weren't bothered about the marches. They weren't bothered about MEPs coming down to say that if you do this, then we're going to make sure that we do this to you or whatever. For me, it's just an absolute fucking farce that somebody was able to be able to go to prison that quick. Yes, I know he was on license or he was on bail or whatever anybody wants to use for it, but he still has to have the right of a fair trial. He did not have a fair trial. He didn't even have his own solicitor and his own choice of solicitor. People are forgetting that he wasn't. Yes, he broke the law in retrospect, but he wasn't given a fair trial.
Do you wonder if they're actually trying to put out a message to the dissenters that this is your man, this is the forefront of the open speaking against us, and this is what we're going to do if you continue?
Well, I actually had a conversation with Captain Coldpile yesterday, I believe, actually, and it was about the video that I produced, and he was saying, "Oh, I don't know why other bigger YouTubers can't do this or can't do that." I was literally going through this point, the fact that it's woken people up that don't have anything to worry about, that are not in the limelight, that are nameless people. But then you've got people that are at the top that are not nameless, that have their name out there, that can be targeted on a personal level. And if they start focusing solely on that issue, then they're going to be sniped after. And they will end up being like Tommy Robinson. You have a look at Sargon, for instance. And I'm not putting it up because I think he should do more or he shouldn't do more. But you have a look at Sargon and himself. If he was to focus solely on this issue, he would be sniped completely and utterly by everybody in the country. He's already being called alt-right, even though we know he's not. But he's being called alt-right and racist all the time. He's getting shows cancelled because of the propaganda of it. So if he was to focus on this as a sole issue like Tommy Robinson did, and he should have done as well, obviously Tommy Robinson, but it just changes everything because now it proves to people that nobody's worried if you go to prison for it, even if they're forcibly put in there.
And this comes back to why I'm hiding behind an avatar, essentially, and why when people say, well, you should give your full name and address if you're not scared and be on Twitter. Well, you give your full name and address, they just saves them time finding you. And that's the scary thing.
Exactly.
And yes,
Pitchforks.
Yep, we can do what we got to do. I just heard a little bit of silence there, which makes my asshole hurt, much like prison rape. And no one wants either one of those things. So we're going to move on. We could go on this forever, but we talk about Tommy quite a lot. I wonder sometimes when I really ponder what's going on in the world, I always come to the same thing in my own mind. There is some dark hand that I do not see. We can call it the hidden hand. That's one of its names. We call it we got the Illuminati, they call it sometimes, the Masons, the odd fellows. Sometimes who knows? Who knows? The Trilateral Commission, Council on Foreign Relations, the Bilderberg Group, Skull and Bones from Yale, maybe a little bit of Bohemian Grove out there in California. Is this I consider these things, and I guess the first thing I want to ask you lot gathered here with me today, because I value everyone's opinions except for the two of you I don't know, that is this: should I give credence to the idea of this Agenda 21? I'm going to kind of combine two things here in one, because when we talk about Agenda 21, we can see what's been said in the UN about it, and we can look at this up with many, many different sources with many different opinions and ideas and what it says. But let's go to what I think is the source of our knowledge about this, and that is the Georgia Guidestones. The Georgia Guidestones is a granite monument erected in 1980 in Elbert County, Georgia, in the United States. A set of 10 guidestones is inscribed on the structure in 8 modern languages, and a shorter message is inscribed at the top of the structure in 4 ancient languages. And I just want to get down to what those things are. I could read this all to you, but I've begun. You can end it. You can find out that it's where it is and how big it is in the whole 9 yards. But let's just look at these 10 New World Order commandments. And, I have one in mind, obviously, talking about Agenda 21. But let's look at these and let's tear this apart, folks. As I read, first dibs goes to whoever I hear speak first when I'm done. So if any of these things gets your goat, we'll discuss them. Number 1, maintain humanity under 500,000 in perpetual, or should be 500 million, half a billion, in perpetual balance with nature. Guide reproduction wisely, improving fitness and diversity. Unite humanity with a living new language. rule passion, faith, tradition, and all things with tempered reason. I can't expound. If I go expound, then this will take forever. So I'm just going to keep reading. Hope y'all are listening carefully to these things. Protect, number 5, protect people and nations with fair laws and just courts. Number 6, let all nations rule internally, resolving internal disputes in a world court. Number 7, avoid petty laws and useless officials. Number 8, balance personal rights with social duties. Number 9, prize truth, beauty, love, seeking harmony with the infinite. Number 10, be not a cancer on the earth. Leave room for nature. Leave room for nature. So as I will be true to my word now, that was a long intro. I'm going to blow these up where these things can be seen. Y'all have seen my ugly mug. I'll have it back up later. But as long as we can all see these, that way us here can comment on them, and you out there can also comment on them as we continue. So who's first? Who wants to
Improving
talk about...
fitness and diversity.
I like them.
Do ya?
No, I heard the first person that talked there. So the number 2,
Ooh.
guide reproduction wisely, improving fitness and diversity, kind of smacks of eugenics. But carry on there, Sharadi. Give him a Sharadi chop.
That's just wrong.
That was funny. That was funny. You could laugh. That's good.
A lot of people are making fun of how my name rhymes with karate. Anyways, the diversity thing, it's just wrong. How everybody wants everything to do with diversity lately. The diversity thing just it doesn't belong in the world. That's pretty much it.
All right, that was deep. Anybody else?
I'll just say with that, it looks a tiny bit Nazi-ish. You know what I mean? That's basically on about controlling birth, controlling people, controlling population. Well, the one that really got me was number 7, where it's going on reducing petty laws and useless officials. That's precisely what they're doing. They're doing that in America, in the UK, in the majority of Europe, basically. They're just grasping in making these tiny little laws to subject us to more ridiculous stuff continuously. You have to be held account for every tiny little thing. So I find that one quite funny. Also,
I'm going to go back to I like them, because I feel at this point in time, anything is better than what we've got at the moment. Anything is better than, and humans have a good way of changing these rules. And if someone tried to implement those 10 rules, we would obviously say, well, this part's not acceptable, so we'll change it to this, to this, to this, as they've tried to do with the Constitution, as they've done with the English laws. We would refine what it actually means and make it humane. But I feel in a lot of ways we're kind of lost at the moment as a society, planet, whatever you want.
Don't you think that most of these laws are already being put into actual fruition?
Well, they are, yes.
It's always subjective. So it's always subjective. When I look at number 1, for instance, maintain humanity under 500 million in perpetual balance with nature. Now, I don't immediately look at that and say, oh no, we have to kill loads of people. But I look at it and say, well, that would have been a better balance for the earth in general. I'm not looking at it in the way of trying to genocide anyone. I must make that clear.
But they are them.
I just gotta say, my husband's trying to call me, and I'm on here on my phone, so I'm gonna have to skip out.
Oh, no bummer. We probably will not be able to carry on without you, Sharadi. Thank you so much for joining us. You've been excellent,
right.
girl. Thank you for our first story. It was second to none. Good.
Cheers.
Thank you.
She'll get used to it. Common Sense Guy and I will always probably expect a lot out of the folks that join us. If we're a little difficult on you, well, you know what? Either do better or don't hate us forever. One of the two. But I did notice Prankster Locks here. As we roll on, Prankster, thanks for finally coming by, you fucking son of a bitch. You must be like, you have to be like the tardy kid, right? You're always late to class and whatnot.
It happens. It happens. There's been a few times where I purposely skipped class. There is this. Is it okay if I just tell a story real quick?
Yeah, absolutely. But you know that we have to take the piss a bit. But yeah. Take us off of this and we'll get back to it. Tell us what's up.
Okay, so there was this one time in school where I hated this class so much, I went into in-school suspension to avoid that class. And I got in trouble and they sent me to in-school suspension for being in-school suspension. Because I snuck in there and I told the teacher in there that I'm supposed to be in that class to avoid a teacher I hate. So it was stupid. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it makes sense, but it doesn't make sense why they did it. But the story makes sense.
Yeah, the teachers got a kick out of it. Everyone was laughing at it. The office was confused. They're like, "What do we do in this situation?" The kid wanted to be punished to avoid a teacher.
Well, you want to know the cool thing? I'm going to add on to that as we continue on into the serious topic, and I expect the best out of you, young man. You stood us up 4 times in a row, and we're talking about some good conspiracy shit. You're no fool. You may be
Alex
young.
Jones stuff.
But we look at you just like one of us. We know that your insights and your ideas are as good as anybody else's on this panel, so we expect you to pipe up. But I want to say something. The cool thing about ISS for me, in school suspension, was I'm Jewish, and ISS was usually on Saturdays. We had they got wise in the very end. My junior year, they started giving it to me during the school day, so I had to stay an hour or two after class. But for the first 10 of them that I got, I didn't get that many, but the first 2 or 3 that I got in my life, I couldn't do them because my mom would be like, "That's our Sabbath. He can't do that." So anyway, thank you, Mama. I love you so much. Way to use religion to get your boy out of a little bit of punishment. So where were we at? And who hasn't done that? Common Sense. I mean, my goodness. I think God.
Well, I haven't used religion, and I haven't asked mum and dad to use religion. But yes, we've all tried to use whatever means we can to get out of particular things that we don't want to do.
Yes,
that's a definite. That's a definite.
So here we go.
I was going to say, would you mind popping them back up again? Because I've got
them up right now.
I've got problems with 3 of them.
Yes. Tell me which one you'd like to start with. Common Sense. I will highlight it.
Well, first of all, obviously, you've got number 1 and number 2. I think, obviously, maintaining humanity under 500 million is absolutely fucking stupid, considering that the population of America is 350. That's not going to work. Not unless all of us move into America. That's not going to work at all. The guide reproduction wisely, improving fitness and diversity. And the idea of improving fitness, great, well done. It's going really well with the amount of McDonald's that we have everywhere. It's going really well with that. I have the most problem with number 4, believe it or not, which is rule passion, faith, and tradition, and all things with tempered reason. The reason why I have such a problem with that is because it is absolutely the only way of controlling any nation or any peoples. If you control the religion, if you control their tradition or any reasons that they have.
Oh my God, and their passion. Yeah. I'm not trying to break and carry on, but their passion too. Holy shit.
Exactly. If you control any of those 3 to 4 things with tempered reason, obviously, then it's a case that you will control them for the rest of their lives without them even knowing it. Because you are controlling what they want to do without them even knowing that's what they want to do.
So true. Yeah, so true, man. So there you go. There's the 4 that, and we will have a general discussion, but I want to pass it off. Let me just keep this in line. That way we'll give Prankster a chance to think. So I'm going to kick it off now to Mr. Appleyard, and I'll give you a second to think. What is the one that, or as Common Sense did, if you can do it succinctly, which ones do you have a problem with? Which one's really stuck in your craw?
Well, number 7, avoid petty laws and useless officials, because, like I said earlier, that's
Yeah, you said that.
practically they're just banging on more and more and more laws against us. I mean, there's this great website on there or Facebook page called Cop Block, which is not what it sounds, not cop, but it's all about police officials basically abusing the power. It's worth a check out. Most of it is from America. People getting handcuffed and then tasered. It's all footage. It's disgusting stuff, really. But they're making up new laws now
On the spot.
on the spot. Yeah, these officers are, and then a couple of months later, they're actually getting implemented as actual laws and legislation. It's absolute insanity, really.
And
Balance personal rights with social duties. What are your social duties? Who says what your social duties are? That again is very subjective. It depends what your social duties are. Are they to your friends? Are they to your village, your city? How far does that go?
Your nation,
your nation, your religion, even others. How can you even? That's just impossible to do. You can't balance personal rights with social duties. You just can't. It doesn't make any sense.
Yeah, if I may prod you, sir, because I got you to say your first thing twice there, and I apologize for that. We just got off track, and you jogged my mind so well with that. So if I may go back to the balance of personal rights with social duties, I just want to press you and say, who in your mind now, no, just clear your mind, and I'm asking you, fuck what anybody else thinks, who in your mind decides what your social duties are?
See, I've got two views on that. So I think part of it is ourselves, because I think a lot of the problems we have these days, why we let all these legislations and all these restrictions on ourselves, is because we allow it. We allow ourselves to be hypnotized or brainwashed or whatever you like. You get told this is the right thing to do. This is your duty as a citizen, as a patriot. At the same time, you're probably going against your own values, but you get pressured into it. And after a while, it just becomes second nature. On the flip side of that, I think, again, you're programmed into it. I think it's not just the idea you're allowed. I think you generally are programmed into it, whether it's through media, even it's silly little things like Hollywood media now, whether there's too much, and I don't really want to go off beat, but the idea there's too much feminism. Every man's made out to look like a bitch these days, or you're being made that you're
Cuck.
Yeah, if you're not sensitive, then you're an absolute misogynist.
Oh man. Well, it's there now. Please, everybody, hold that in their mind. I've got to go to the last two here, Mr. Appleyard. But everybody, hold that in their mind. The idea that men must be torn down and made to seem to be fools. We may, unless something else, and nothing so far has even remotely kicked my brain cells like that. So unless something else comes up, we'll probably go into that before we go into our probably last story today. So Maz, it's on you. Give me one. Which one was really sticking in your craw? It doesn't matter if it's already been mentioned. It may have stuck in your craw in a different way, sir.
Well, I think all of them do, but I think I'm thinking of it in different terms. I'm thinking of it in as a personal responsibility in my personal self. So if just quickly go back to number 8, and we're talking about social duties, the way I'm thinking about that is from the moment I leave my house and walk out the door, I have a social duty not to kill people because they make me angry. I have a social duty not to rob people, not to harass people, not to mug people. And because I'm not thinking of it in SJW terms, what they're telling me I'm supposed to believe, I believe in myself, the way I should act within society.
Now, I'll ask a quick question, Mons.
Yeah.
For what you just said, for instance, and I think what John was actually trying to get at, say, for instance, that your social duty turns out to be the fact that you have to go and kill children that are not looking the same way as somebody else. But because that was your social duty, that means that the personal rights of those children have been forfeited for your social duty.
I understand what you're saying. I mean, but I'm not looking at it as a social duty that's passed down to me from the government. I'm looking at it as almost a personal responsibility, the way I should act within society, my own morals, my own guidelines. And if someone asked me to do that, obviously I would refuse at whatever cost.
No, that's fair enough. It's just the case that I know how you're looking at it, but these tenants, so to speak, are not written for individuals. They're written for governments. And the reason why you can tell that they're written for governments, if Ogre can just quickly bring them up again, is because of, I think it's number 7 or number 8. Sorry, no, number 6. Let all nations rule internally, resolving external disputes in a world court. That's how you know that this is not written for a singular person. This is written for the world. This is written for the states of the world to come into one court to sort out their civil and criminal disputes. And that's where social duties is an important note when it comes to personal rights, because your social duties are dictated to you by your country, where your rights are what you intrinsically want to give to yourself.
Yeah, absolutely. Maybe this is the clever, subtle brain training, is that I'm not seeing it in that way and it's affecting me. Whereas I'm thinking these are my individual responsibilities, but the government is controlling me and I just don't see it. And, obviously, if it's government control, fuck them.
Yeah, no, quick question on that then was, to forget number 6.
Yeah.
What about number 1? If these are your social tenants, how are you going to make the world go down to 500 million?
Well, I'm not saying we should implement it as always on a Wednesday. I'm saying we should think about it and run through the idea. I'm not saying, I'm never saying that there's too many, we have to cut it down. I'm just saying, wouldn't it be better?
The question I was asking though wasn't how you're going to implement it, as in how we're going to think about it. If we're going to go through the thought experiment, you have to go through the point of number 6, which is the case that you have to resolve it in a world court, meaning that these are tenets that we all have to abide by. How are we going to get the population down to 500 million? Because we all have to adhere to these points, meaning that we have to try and make sure that we get a population of 500 million. How do we do it?
I'll be honest. I'll be honest. I think I'm looking at if you like, in fairyland, where it's actually these things are achievable without hurting anyone. Where would they be good things as opposed to what we have to do to get there?
Well, even just number 2, the guide of reproductivity, is a case of how do you even start to even consider controlling that? Because that's not something that we control individually.
Well, no. I actually see the way I was looking at that is I was thinking, well, I'm not again looking at the government controlling reproductivity. I'm looking at myself as a person deciding who I'm going to reproduce with.
But
very quickly, listen, I've got this written down. This has also really piqued my interest. And we have these other things, but let's face it, this is the Quinspercy. I think this may be enough material to take us through this entire broadcast. So that in mind, gentlemen, if you'll just hang what you're thinking on a hat, on a hook in your head, I should say, and we'll bring that back up. Let me give Prankster Locke a second to also, you've been able to look at this now, Prankster. I'm not going to belabor the fact that you are just some kind of little 10-year-old kid never even had a boner in your life, but
who was late on the stream because he had to finish playing Call of Duty.
Yes, but we do respect you, and so we want to know your opinion. We want to know in your young mind that has, oh man, so many more synapses firing than all of us old faggots all combined. What is it here that is sticking in your craw, sir? What is it that is really bumming you out?
I definitely want to say, first of all, thank you for allowing me on stream and everything. And second of all, I'm sorry I have been quote unquote tardy. And
crack
in
on.
other cases, I've missed some.
Hey,
streams.
don't mention it. We're not worried about it. Nobody even talked about it. Just carry on.
So I don't have to come up with any excuses or anything, right?
No.
Okay, so is it like an excused absence? I'm good.
No, you're good.
Yeah, you're fine. You're fine.
Crack on. You got this.
Okay, so the first thing that like pops in mind is Rule 4, because if it means you're taking away passions, that means they're like taking away hobbies as well. Because some people can be really passionate with hobbies, and that like in a way it's taking away your freedom of what you do in your free time. And I think that like that sticks out to me the most. And I'm not sure if we're on the same page because I came to the stream a little bit late.
No, we are. So I just want you to expound on that. So you're narrowing number 4 down to the passions, which also really stuck in mind.
Definitely.
So when you say this is what got me in what you just said. When you say they're rule, so in other words, I may look at you calling somebody and making someone look like a fool, or any number of the pranks you do. I like your call pranks are always my favorites. In
Thank
fact, number 1 will always be the black cat. That's classic and indelible in my mind. So what you're saying is that this would be a bummer if maybe I didn't like that and said, "Hey, you spend too much time thinking of ways to prank people." And and if that's what you're saying, why would that be a bad thing? Why shouldn't society say, "Look, prankster Locke, you should be focused on fucking algebra"?
Well, wouldn't that be more of constructive criticism and not taking that away then?
Yeah,
No, because it's actually physically taking it away from you, because this is a case of taking your passions away and forcing you to have to do what the state wants you to do. Back to your social responsibilities again.
Yeah, you got that, Locke? So in other words, yeah, carry on. You were saying that you don't want someone to interject their ideas on your passions. Now I'm asking you, why would that be a bad thing? Now, are you agreeing with me in saying that it wouldn't be a bad thing if someone was giving you quote unquote constructive criticism, son? So you think it'd be constructive criticism if I said you can't make those videos anymore because you don't have an A+ in trigonometry?
That'd be controlling, if anything. Okay, I misunderstood you a little bit. That'd be controlling. It would limit the things you can do. So that's why it sticks out to me and why I don't like it.
Yeah, that's fair enough.
All right, boys, now it's time. Thank you so much, Locke, everybody, for giving your thing. Let's do this. Let's have an open discussion. We'll start with the last one, and we'll work our way back to the first. Where do we draw the line? Common sense, you had a really good train of thought going there. Where is it that we finally say that we want to have commerce, right? We want to be able to go to the store. I want to be able to buy a blueberry pie from the blueberry guy because I don't make blueberries. I want to be able to go get some hang a side of beef because I don't grow cows. I want to be able to go sell my produce to people that don't grow tomatoes and whatnot. Where do we draw the line between that and let's go right to maintaining guiding reproduction wisely, improving fitness, and uniting humanity with a living language? I mean, these things, they sound, how do we go between these things, wanting to have a society and having and allowing folks to come up with these draconian ideas that say they want to call humanity down to 1/14 of its population, say what children they can have, and make them all speak the same language? I hope that's enough prodding to get you.
No, the thing is, what you're saying is completely and utterly not able to happen. If you wanted to live in any sort of form of a liberal society or any sort of form of a free society, so to speak, you would not be able to live by these laws. You would not be able to live by China. You can only have 2 kids, and that's it. If you have any more, we're going to have to kill them. You can't live to the point where people are telling you, we don't have enough white people, so you're going to have to go sleep with more white people. We don't have enough black people, so you're going to have to sleep with more black people. That takes away every single essence of free will and free choice that you can possibly ever have. From the simple point of just taking away your passions, your future, your religion, if you choose to have one, your ideology. Just to take away those is to take away you, is to take away your own sense of self. Because without our hobbies, without our choices to be who we want to be, who are we? Because we're not being ourselves. We're being what somebody wants us to be. So we're not being us.
We'd be robots of the government.
Sorry?
We'd be robots. I didn't mean to interrupt, but we'd be robots of the government, or better word, sheep at that point.
Yeah, so we would be under the government's control, and we would technically be even more sheepish than what we are now. But that's the whole point. The fact of what Ogre's already said, the draconian laws that have been put into place have been written in such a language where people like Moz, whether he chooses to or not, and this is not just picking on him, it's because he's the one in the panel that does it and has done it, thinking that this is for him to take in. That's how communism works. The point that you are the one that's important and everything else will work around you to make you lift yourself up, because everything's there to lift you, and it's not. It's not there to lift you up. You've got to do it. And that's the same thing in any society that has any sort of form of free will. The simple fact that the government, any form of government, can't tell you what to do and what to love, and even fact, who to love. As soon as you get to that point, you're not in a free society anymore.
Carry on, gentlemen. Let's have an open discussion. Everybody
Could I just add then, in some ways, I agree with what Common Sense has just said there. I'm thinking individually of myself and how I would apply these situations to myself. But it also ties into what we talk about a lot, about the end goal of the elites and what they're aiming for. Couldn't a lot of this be tied into the actual EU superstate plans and what they're aiming for in a subtle way?
Yes, very much so, especially with the law of coming under one court. The idea of being able to throw yourself together in individual sovereign states, which, as we all know from under the EU, you don't have sovereign control because the EU is the one that controls what the laws are, and the EU is the one that's actually telling you what courts and what laws to take on. So, yes, you are correct that the elites are already trying to produce this idea. For instance, what's the most common language and common tongue now spoken in the world? It's English.
Yeah.
Well, followed by Mandarin, technically. But generally, in different countries, it is actually spoken as English. For how many different countries speak different languages, they always speak English. And that comes under the living language, which is an idea that's being produced around at this moment in time for having a universal language, if you will, for computer geeks. And you do bring up
in a long way around, thinking that this is their end goal and the way they're aiming us, couldn't then we, in a conspiracy way, actually add this to the multiple dimension theories, where in fact the actual multiple dimensions are my own little personal bubble that I'm living in?
No, that just means it's a breaking reality. It just means that it's a breaking reality, because all it's doing at that point in time is you're trying to understand what's going on and you're forcing reality around you to fit a narrative, to fit yourself. In other words, you are shaping reality to fit your own narrative. That's not a multiple dimension theory. That's just somebody trying to justify what they're thinking or what they know to be wrong to be right.
No, I like that because that makes a lot of sense to me, because that makes my decision to go out tomorrow and go to work and not kill anyone, that makes a lot of sense. I'm forcing my reality around me to fit the situation. I like that.
Can I nitpick something you said earlier? That's something like stood out pretty much.
Everybody does. Go ahead.
Okay, fair enough. I figured I'd be nice for once, so I'll forget that. But anyways, I noticed you said they'd force you to love, and I think that would be like not exactly the best phrasing, because you cannot like force who you love like emotionally, but like
arranged marriages.
What I mean?
Arranged marriages.
Yeah. But as I said, I'm like nitpicking what you said word for word, taking it way too literal.
No, I agree. No, that's fine.
If that was a choice, I don't think I would have dated a lesbian for 2 years. Just saying.
That's fine. Lucky for you on that one.
If
I can't prod you on that, you son of a bitch. Tell me that shit when you're 18.
All I'd say is, with the idea of love, you've got to understand what they're doing at the moment is they're changing the meaning of words anyway. People always say, "Oh, I love this, I love this." Love has no real meaning in one respect these days, because everybody's saying, "I love this, I love that." You've got to look at how they're changing the words in society, and they're doing it very gradually. In fact, now it's accelerating a hell of a lot, especially in England anyway. Words are changing continuously, whether it's through slang, whether it's through general term, anything, even through, and I'm not against multiculturalism on a small scale, but even through multiculturalism, it's changing now. So what you might say to one person, they might take it offensive, whereas I wouldn't.
Yeah.
For example, I'm from Yorkshire. I say love. I call men love. It's not because I'm in love with them. It's a term of affection. You say, "You're all right, love. How you doing?" It's just like duck, darling.
But I think that's a little bit different than, that's not taking away though, Mr. Appleyard. That is only a term of endearment. But what you're talking about is lessening a
Yes.
term.
Yeah, but
Which,
that's what I
like,
mean.
we just say awesome all the time until the point where awesome used to be something extraordinary, and then it was just like something you liked.
Yeah, but that's what I mean. That's what they're doing with love. It's like saying, "Oh, I love so and so." It's people go on and say, "Oh, I love this," and they've never met the person.
Right.
It's
I just want to
idea
draw
that-
the distinction between the how you doing, love, and I love this. You're saying, because if I want to make it very clear, you're saying that, hey, love is not what you're talking about. You're talking about how everybody says, "Oh, I love this." That's the problem.
Yeah, it's not. That's what I mean. It's not the idea of how I would use it as a term of endearment, but the idea of actually loving somebody is changing in modern society. So the idea you can love anything.
Yeah.
You can meet someone for 5 minutes, go, I love them. Not in the sense that you have undying, affectionate love for that person.
But you really like
know
them.
what I mean? But it's the idea that you're meant to love your phone. There's that new, I don't know if you have it in America, there's this advert for is it iPhone? And they're basically saying your phone is your world, your phone is your life. And it's that idea of changing what's important in your reality. And that's what I mean. It's just with the idea of changing words, I kind of sidetrack. So
just to let you know, Ogre, you're still screen
yeah,
sharing.
I meant to do that. Somebody asked me about my Twitter and the thing, so I shared it out there, and then I'm showing it on screen. I am now done grandstanding.
No problem. I just wanted to quickly go back to what Prankster was actually trying to get at, to be fair. And he was obviously trying to suggest that the government in itself, or some form of authority, doesn't have to be the big bad government, but some form of authority can't force you to love somebody. Thing is, parents already do that in arranged marriages now. Now, I'm not trying to say that like with young girls and things like that, I'm not trying to put that. For people that are roughly the same age and roughly the same ethnic group and things like that, they can be arranged marriages and forced marriages, so to speak. But 20 years down the line, they can say that they fell in love with each other because they had nowhere else to go. They had nowhere and no one else to choose. That can and does generally work for arranged marriages. They end up falling in love because they're forced to fall in love. So that's why I said that the government can force you to love people.
Yeah, you said a mouthful there, but that doesn't make it good. Yeah, carry on. Whoever was speaking,
exactly.
I've talked enough. Whoever else.
I think
I wasn't saying it was a good thing. I was just pointing out the fact that that's what the government and parents can do themselves. So what happens if the government was to issue the powers? How much more would it be forced upon us? That's all. I was just trying to draw a comparison.
Lock.
I think the way to like look at it is like, obviously when you're stuck with someone so much, you love them to some extent, like your parents. You've been with them for so long, or you're like siblings and stuff. Of course you're gonna love them because like you're with them so much. So like, now that you point that out, that's like an interesting point of view, and I'm glad we brought this up.
Yeah, sort of.
Well, I think in the end, for me, this is the bad part about this is that there is someone in the world that has enough money and wherewithal, whatever, to buy this land and to erect these monuments and to extol the virtues of these things that I think we can all come to this agreement. This is the most totalitarian, Nazi, Taoist shit. We could never come up. Mao could never have come up with something like this. He I mean, the thousand poppy blossom spread. It wasn't. This is the worst. And what it comes down to is this, gentlemen. Locke, you're a young man. Do you need someone, even as young as you are? You're not even, I don't think you can legally sign a contract. Do you have to have someone standing over your shoulder every moment of the day telling you what's right and what's wrong?
If that was the case, I would have been screwed a long time ago.
Yeah, and
so the answer is no.
And do any of us? I mean, so do any of us? That is what this looks like. It looks like Big Brother to the nth, Orwellian nightmare. Never doesn't even come close. They're talking about telling you what passions to have, when to have a child, how many of you can exist. And when I heard you say common sense about, well, we all have to move to America. it doesn't say any kind of ethnic or country. It just says that there'd be 500 million. That means that us here, I'm sorry to tell all of y'all here because I like to think I'm important too. We don't make the cut. We don't make the cut.
Yeah.
We are some of the ones that they whatever they do. They give the vaccine, they do the thing, we die. And they don't care. I don't need that, folks. I don't want anyone in my community or in my circle to need that. One thing that I require of my friends and of my people that I have in my circle, you have to take care of yourself.
Yeah.
Could I just add a quick story to that?
Oh yeah, we got tons
Yeah.
of time, man. We got another 40 minutes, brother.
It goes back to what you're saying about they don't care. Now, many, many years ago, I went to at that time, ex-girlfriend's family party, and I met a person there for the very first time. And this is kind of in some ways what helped start me on the path of thinking. Is at that time, I spoke to this lady, and she was a nurse, and she was a nurse in a very prestigious hospital, not UNHS, just a very prestigious hospital. And I said to her, at that time, I was thinking, so I've been thinking about carrying a donor card. Do you think that's a good idea? And she instantly said no. She instantly said no. And she said, let me tell you this. Do you honestly think that if you were laying in a hospital bed in a coma and somebody important come in, say, for instance, Margaret Thatcher, and she needed a kidney and you matched, I can tell you now for one single moment, they would not hesitate to turn you off.
You're done. You're done. Yeah, no way. Don't do it. I've heard that all over, but don't do it. Yeah. I prodded my wife who works at a hospital and said, do you think? But she's a respiratory therapist, and I will also say this about my beloved Mrs. Ogre: she closes her eyes to things that even she knows are evil because there's nothing she can do about it. It's because I ask her a lot about the hospital, and I'll tell you one thing: in the United States and everywhere else in the world, the hospital is where you go for one of two things. If you've been banged up in a bad accident and your arm is off or your guts are out, you go there and they sew you back together. They're Humpty Dumpty, but they actually put you back together nowadays. They're really good, especially in the Western world. But number two, what most people go there for is to die.
Can testify to that.
Yeah, very much so. I completely and utterly agree with that.
All right. Well, I do have some other stories. We can go on about this. What I want to do now, because it seems like, as I thought that it would be the whole rest of this time, it feels like we're kind of edging off of this. I mean, you can only talk about the same thing for so long. So I want to give everyone an opportunity. Now we've already talked about and expressed which one of these things really rubbed us the wrong way, stuck in our craw, so to speak. If there's any final words on this, if there's any solutions, I mean, because look, if we only get together, gentlemen, and talk about the problems and never discuss a solution, what fucking good are we?
Absolutely nothing.
Absolutely nothing. So I'm going to wrap it up with the common sense guy. I've talked enough on this. I'll have the next story up when you all are ready. But let's go in normal order now, because Prankster, I love you, baby, but you're the no, I'm sorry, Mr. Appleyard. And then we'll go to
He's preoccupied.
Okay, preoccupied. So we'll start with Prankster. That's a great thing, because I wanted to start with him anyway. Start with Prankster. We'll go to Mr. Appleyard if he's ready. If not, then Maz, and then Common Sense Guy. What's any final words on this? Solutions, more problems that you see? Is this an impenetrable barrier set before us that there is no way through?
I think if done very cautiously and obviously very secretively, you could overthrow and kill. You can overthrow and kill the government. You'd have to do it it'd take a lot of work. I don't know how likely that is, but it's history's shown it's possible.
I fucking love this kid. We probably can't comment too much on that, son, because it's called sedition and treason. But that's a wonderful thing that you just said. I will say that.
Also, can I shamelessly plug my YouTube real quick?
Oh, hell yeah. You got plenty of time, man. You had like 5 minutes when you started talking. You just only took 30 seconds.
So my YouTube's Prankster Luck. Check it out. Maybe subscribe. I've been trying like a new format of editing and stuff, and that's pretty much it. Okay.
Put a link in the side chat here. I'll send it out in the main chat, and I'll also put one in the low bar here. There will be a couple things on this video. Number one, when you go on my channel, any video, there is a link to a Patreon there. You'll see who it links to. Go ahead and give some money there. And today, no super chats, and that's fine. But remember, all super chats at this point will go into the kitty for the Common Sense Guy Fund. What is that fund for? Well, it may buy some days some fish and chips. Another day, it may help pay the rent. Another day, it may buy a couple quarts of cider. I don't know, and I can't tell you exactly what it would go to, but I will say it will go to helping make my brother's life a little bit more comfortable than it otherwise would be in this very financially trying time that he's going through. So remember that. Yeah. Anybody else? Now that I'm done with that, so there was Prankster Lock. So that was your solution. No solution, son. Before we move on, your last chance.
If you did yes, it would be treason. But if you do it properly, and it would take a lot of time, I feel like I'm sure there would be a way if it's done properly. Anyone else agree or?
Oh yeah, no, we all agree. We're just letting you have your say. So you think just a flat out overthrow of society. So here we go, Mr. Appleyard. Any different thoughts? Something else?
Well,
Final thoughts.
But on what? Taking
on
out?
what we've been talking about.
Yeah. Well, problem is I don't really think there is a solution. All I'd say is it doesn't matter how much you push back. We're always going to have more power, more money, more officials to basically come at you. I think it's good that they discussed it. It's good that the point get out there, and that's why I agreed to come on here. But yeah, that's the problem. They're just too powerful these days. Majority of people won't look at the truth. They don't want to know, do they? I think that's the major thing for me. That's why it's great to come on these streams or listen to these streams, because it does get out there. It doesn't matter how many people are listening. Apart from that, I'll
fair enough.
On next.
No, that's perfect, sir. Perfect. So, Maz, we look to you, sir.
Yeah, I'll apologise first of all if there is a motorbike that goes past in the background, but I'm going to agree. I'm going to agree in some ways with Prankster Lock. I'm not calling for violence in any way, but it makes me think of the old questions of, if you could go back in time, who would you meet? If you could have a dinner with 3 people. And more now, I'm thinking I would like to have my dinner with Guy Fawkes and actually ask him what he was thinking when he did it, or when he was trying it, because we all know history is written by the victors. And was he really that evil person they were saying, or did he see these things coming? And as always, people love these kind of conversations because I've learned some stuff, and again, there's some new stuff I have to think about. And thank you all for that. It's excellent.
Common Sense Guy, take us out of this subject right here in a grand style, as you always do, sir.
Cheers, no pressure. To be honest, the solutions are not easy to comprehend, and they're not easy to accomplish. But the solutions of what we have been saying from the very beginning, they are trying to socially condition and socially engineer what's going on. The only way of combating that is by doing your own form of social cohesion. That doesn't mean that you're trying to control the situation. It means you're counteracting the points that they're making. So what you do is, instead of counteracting propaganda with propaganda, you counteract propaganda with facts. And nothing and nobody, no matter how much you want to use propaganda, can stop facts from winning out. And yes, you will not win everybody over, but it doesn't need everybody to win over as social change. You just have to have a tipping point for that social change to occur. Once you have that social change that occurs, you can then reshape society into what that social cohesion wants and can achieve. Now, sometimes that's a bad thing, sometimes it's a good thing. But if you wanted to counteract this without trying to overthrow the government and forcing your hand against it, because remember, no matter what you do to the government, until you change that social cohesion and that social thinking and that social conditioning that's been put into place, You're always going to have rebels that are going to be fighting against you because they're going to believe wholeheartedly in what was perpetuated. So you have to change the ideology before you do anything else, because the ideology is the most important.
We have to ask ourselves, how do people get on TV and shit? Common sense. Sometimes when I listen to you, man, I really get some insight. And I know, yeah, if I go on much longer, you'll just start the jack off gesture and you probably feel uncomfortable. You know what? I'll just say this, sir, that you should have put in for a missionary because you're quite a preacher, young man. You stick at it, you're going to go somewhere. So let's close it out this way. I have nothing else to say. I've said everything on the way, and I thank you so much, everybody's input. And if I start to talk now, common sense will only have to mute me, and everyone knows how I hate that on my own channel. So we're going to move on. I wrote this down, and it does come from this, but I really want to get. I mean, we have now Prankster Lock. All jokes aside, we know you're busy, and it's spring, summertime, and we're just glad you're here now. But since you're here, your take on this, and Maz, I believe you're a father, right, Maz? Are you not a father, Maz? And maybe not.
Yeah, yes. Sorry, I was muted.
Yes.
Sorry, yeah.
Yes, and I thought I know RPR is, so Maz is a father. So here's the issue: the same group of people, it seems, that are pushing this idea of the Georgia Guidestones. All of these very, to me, terrifying things that we just looked at. None of them are good. Not one of those 10 commandments of the New World Order is something that I would back. Not one. Why are they tearing down the man? I think often about Bart Simpson and Homer Simpson. I watched them on the Tracy Ullman show years ago. 1986, I want to say, was the first time. I was 12 years old. First time I ever seen Bart Simpson. I loved him right away. But Homer Simpson on the Tracy Ullman show was a different character. He was called Homer because Homer was a great prolific writer. Homer's Odyssey, anyone? He was a philosopher. He was very intelligent. And Homer would go to his son and he would say, "Now, boy, you," and his voice, same guy voiced him, but his voice was even different. It wasn't the do, it was the "now, boy, sit down and let your old man." And they did kind of make light of the fact that your wise old man would preach to you and you didn't like it, but the words coming out of Homer's mouth were always poignant, intelligent, wise. Now, when they became famous, of course, and they were bought by Fox, that all changed. I think of Al Bundy. I think of all of these from 1985 forward fathers that we see in the media. And I wonder, what's going on here, gentlemen? Why am I suddenly supposed to believe that my wise, benevolent father that sheltered me through life's storms as I was young and, yes, beat my ass, cuffed me, bled me, and called me the very eye of syphilis, but did it all with the motivation of forging out of raw steel a new man to carry on what he believed to be manly. What's going on, folks? Why is this no longer something that is vaunted? Why do we now look down on the man? Why is media? Why is art? Why is entertainment taking our minds and trying to twist them to believe that a man is only a fool? I'll let anybody go first. I know that was a long diatribe. I should have called somebody out, but anyone can go.
Well, I'll jump in with the way I acted as a parent, if you like, just as a space filler, or what anyone wants to think about it. Is the first time my son was born and the first time I held him was the first time I held a child. I had no other experience of it, no other experience at all. And my whole goal throughout his life was, my job is to prepare him to be an adult. My job is to prepare him so that when he's 16, 18, or whatever he is, when he leaves school, he has to be an adult that can interact with society. Now, you could take that back to government control if you want to argue that I've been controlled by government, But I was never a parent that would say, oh, I want to be your best friend. We're going to be the best mates. It was no, you need to do this. You need to do that. If you go and swear at someone, they're going to break your nose. If you rob something, you're going to prison. And that I feel was my job as a parent, was to prepare him for what society is.
Yes. Anyone else? So what? Because my question is, and that's an excellent statement there. But my big question here, and what I want to delve into, is why is that being destroyed, Maz? Gentlemen, why is it that we're being? I mean, look back. You can look.
Yeah, instantly, it just comes back to the control. I mean, you could argue that. I've always said that people in general are just parrots. They're just repeating what their parents taught them. Now, I was really lucky, and I will say this every time. I had good parents. My mum was Catholic. My dad was Church of England, which means not really a Christian, but you fall under that guise. And they both decided that they weren't going to teach their children anything. They were going to let their children decide for themselves. Now, you can see where I've ended up conspiracy wise, but it gave me that thought in my mind to decide for myself, to believe in what I believe in. Again, we could argue, is that government control? Were they controlled to do it? Was I controlled to do it? I think at some point, at some stage, whether it's tomorrow, people have to take responsibility for themselves. And when you've got so many different cultures that believe so many different things, who's right, who's wrong? I've always believed that in a different country, what their laws and rules are, whether I think they're mental, that's not my decision to make, because that's a different country. And
Beautiful.
And what? Oh, he cut out on us.
Oh, he's roboting by the sound of it.
Oh man, right in the middle of a really good rant.
Yeah, in my country, if you come here, when in Rome, you stick with our laws, our rules. If you don't like it, don't come here.
For what we heard, well done.
Said. The last little touch got cut off, but the rest of it was great. So carry on, gentlemen. That was a good springboard there. We have to have some other ideas, though. We have to have somebody else that sees this from a different angle. Why is this going on? Why is the destruction of man? Why are we no longer allowed to have Boy Scouts of America? Why is this going down to where teach men not to rape? I mean, who needs to be taught that? Who didn't know at a young age it was wrong to hold their little friend down that was a girl and do something bad to her? Did anybody not know that? Why is this going on?
I've noticed a lot of things on like Snapchat and stuff. It's like screenshot this and share if you're against rape or you're against dog abuse. And I feel like it's common sense. But when it comes down to it, I do think
it's not me.
Huh?
It's not me.
Oh.
I didn't tell you to do it.
No. Carry on. Good joke.
No, that was good. That threw me off real quick because I'm ADHD. It's not your fault. That was hilarious, by the way. But I do think it's definitely with the media and how they twist things. I say that's a big part of it. It's the media's agenda. Sorry, stutter. It's the media's agenda, really.
What would be the reason, though, if you have any ideas? Why do you think they're doing that?
For men, I think it's just liberals, really. Just to put it down simple, it's liberals.
What would be the reason, though? I still ask.
I know where you're pushing because I've thought of it at the beginning. I know exactly where you're pushing.
Okay, thank you. I just can't phrase it.
and it's the fact that if you belittle masculinity and you belittle men as a whole, then you don't get men fighting back against you. You don't get an army or retaliation to come up because they're being told that they're being repressive in their own nature. That's where we're going. To the fact that men can't be men because men will naturally defend. Men will naturally give their lives to defend. Where if you're told that that's wrong, if you're told that that's not a good way of living, that's not how you're supposed to be, one, you're fighting against the nature and biology that's already been given to you by evolution. And second of all, it's a case that is the reason why you cannot fight. because you don't want to, because you're socially conditioned to not rebel. Hello, Memes. How you doing, sir?
I'm doing all right. How are we guys doing?
Doing
Good,
all
good.
right.
He'll catch up. Carry on, Common Sense. He'll catch up. He's been here before. He knows what to do.
Yeah, no, that's fine. I mean, I'm basically on the finishing side of things. That's literally what I honestly think. The reason why they're trying to demasculate us is because men generally do most of the fighting. And if you're demasculating the men, then they're not going to want to fight back. It's the same thing you're trying to get the idea of gun control. If you have the idea of gun control where you're going to take away the guns away from people, as well as trying to demasculate men at the same time, it seems that there's a correlation. And yes, correlation does not mean causation, but there is a correlation. And surely those are things that we need to look into.
All right. So anybody else in Memes, just so I think you've been listening. So we're talking about the reasons maybe, and if maybe we're seeing, knowing you may have another view of this. Maybe we're seeing something into this. Maybe it's just comedy. Maybe there are shows that build up the man. I don't really see that, but why would it be that they're tearing down the man? What this is a conspiracy theory. Why is it that they're trying to belittle mankind? And you just showed up, Meme. So I know I just prompted you like 3 times, but I want to make sure that Mr. Appleyard, or in fact, I think he's the only one that has not spoken up quite yet.
Yeah. Well, I'd say, I mean, this is a subject that really kind of touched my heart. I've recently just become a father. I've got a little girl. She's only 2 months old, which scares the life out of me. Because as much as I've taken to being a father, the problem is she's now got to grow up in a society that I don't really deem is suitable for children these days. And the reason is I've got to find this dividing line. Where do I treat her to be a strong, independent woman, but at the same time to still respect a man, in the sense of, a man's got to be a man in a sense. Does that make any?
Yeah, no, makes sense.
I know that sounds very confused, but the thing is, I was raised as a feminist. I was raised by a mother, a single mother, three boys. She put herself through university, worked 4 jobs, and she's now a leading lecturer in English, trauma theory, film theory. She built herself up, and it's taken her years to do so. So she taught me about that. I was raised a feminist. You've got to respect a woman, everything, that's fine. But she also taught me to open a door for a woman, to be a gentleman for a woman, to give a woman a coat. That's not me being sexist. That's me generally how I was raised, being polite. You can't even do that in this day and age now. I think even taking that little thing away from a man, that he could be nice to a woman without demeaning her, I think that's another big thing now. Unless you look like these body sculpt Baywatch David Hasselhoff / Zac Efron /
Meatheads. Yeah.
Absolute disgrace specimens of human, in what they call human they're just viruses to me, quite frankly. They're dangerous. It's that idea. That's what makes them
on SpongeBob.
But yeah, it's just insane for me, because I am in that predicament where how do I teach my daughter to be a strong woman, but at the same time respect that different genders have different abilities, different standards, you know what I mean? But
You fucking sexist. We're all the same.
I don't care. I'll honestly say, as long as she learns to treat people with respect, that is the main thing for me. But at the same time, I won't have her being over dominative over men, you know what I mean? Saying, oh, he's the biggest pig for calling me darling or love, or looking at me because I'm wearing a short skirt and stuff like that. Of course someone's going to look at you if you're wearing a short skirt. It's that type of thing.
It's evolution.
That's why you put it on, love.
Biology.
Yeah, exactly. It's attention. But yeah, no, that's all I'll say on that. I'll let someone else speak now.
Yeah, Memes is probably wanting to say something. He's been listening for a minute. I know the guys like me. He loves to have his thoughts known. Tell us, Memes.
No, I think Mr. Prankster Locke was kind of hitting the nail right on the head there. We're human beings. We're 80% water. We tend to go the path of least resistance. If it's easy to just go along with the flow, hey, why not? It's just you're assimilating. To go against the grain, it's hard. But as we know, a wise man once said, we do these things not because they're easy, but because they're hard. I butchered my JFK there. My apologies.
No, that was good. Oh, I thought it was Bobby, but that was okay. Yeah. Good. Doing because they're hot.
It's good.
Well, and it is hard to be a man. In fact, it's been hard to be a man. They talk about the wage gap, folks, and they're obviously belittling what right now apparently is all males on this panel. You know, so whatever. Maybe we're mansplaining.
Hey, I identify as a fucking table.
I thought you were a cat. I'm a dragon kid.
Well, they were last words. We've got a lot of people here, so we're gonna do it. But this is it. We all, in the end, need a father figure. What I like to say, I go to my pub up the road here pretty often, and they give me my pulled pork sandwich. Don't tell my grandma. Thank God she's dead. And you know, they bring out my beer, and I always say the same thing. They bring me out a beer and a shot of Traverse City whiskey from Traverse City, Michigan. Oh my goodness, aged 18 years in a maple barrel. Maple barrel. And it's so nice. It's so nice. And I always say the same thing. I have my drink neat, down it past the gums, and have my sip of beer, and I say, wow, that was just like mother's milk and father's sheltering arm. And why is it that our society is degraded? It's crumbling to this point to where shouldn't we look at it like this? When I scraped my knee, I did not go to my father. I went to my mother, and she put mercurochrome on it, and then she blew on the boo-boo. Said, "It's better, right?" And I said, "Yes, Mom, it's better." She wiped my tears away. If I went to my dad, he'd be like, "What's wrong with you, boy? Toughen up," you know? But when I had problems in school and I didn't know how to be cool, I had that girl I wanted to woo.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't go to my mom. I went to my dad. My dad taught me everything I know about those things. Maybe that's why I've been married to the same woman for 25 years. And I've got nothing funny to say about that. I'm not going to make any jokes about it. It's been wonderful for me. So there we go. Now, Locke, I see you're ripping and raring to go, but this is the end, folks. We're going to go ahead and do it this way. We're going to start with you, young man, since you're ripping and raring to go. We're going to do it since this is I think it's the second or third time I've been on with Mr. Appleyard, but we're going to call it the first. We're going to go with Prankster Locke, Mr. Appleyard, Memes of Destruction. No, I think I got that backwards too. Moz, let me try it again. Prankster Locke. I'm sorry, there's a lot of people here in Common Sense. Bear with me. Prankster Locke.
I told you 5 was the limit.
Well, I seen memes out there lurking, and I knew we were close to the end. I just wanted to have his last word. So we're going to go with memes. We're going to go with Prankster Locke, Mr. Appleyard, Memes of Destruction, Moz, Common Sense Guy, and I will wrap us up. Be gentle, gentlemen. Let's all stick it down to about 3 minutes. Make our landings good. Thank you so much for being here. Remember that your final word can be about anything you'd like it to be. It does not have to be about any topic that we discussed. It can be about life, love, death, destruction, revenge, happiness, deceit, or melancholy. Take it away, boys.
Okay, so I definitely just want to wrap up this stream by saying, obviously, thanks for having me on once again. And I know this is beyond random, but memes, I love your voice. I don't know why, but your voice, I love it. That's beyond random, but whatever. I just had to get that out there at some point. But my YouTube channel is Prankster Locke. Be sure to check it out, subscribe, maybe leave some dislikes for me, maybe report the channel, see what you can do, maybe get it taken down with some strikes. Just give my YouTube channel attention in some way, shape, or form. Okay, carry on.
Fair enough. Yeah. I'd just pick up on Ogre's point. This idea that having a mother and a father, having the different roles, I think it is diminishing. I think we should carry it on, to be honest. But is that idea your parents are your friends these days? That's what they make out. Your parents should be your best friends. That's not how it should be. It should be strict guidelines, strict boundaries. I think that's where a lot of the problems with respect these days. I don't know what it's like in America per se, but UK, there is a big problem with discipline. I would say a lot of people, short attention spans, they can't function, basically. That's why it's so erratic. Drugs are such a massive problem here. Alcohol is such a massive problem. because those values aren't being implemented. And I don't think being a single mother or a single father or a single parent in general is any excuse for not having those boundaries up. This idea that you have to have a man about the house, I don't think that's necessarily true, but you do need a father figure there, or at least some elderly, don't know what to call them, set of guidance, basically. I think that's what a lot of it comes down to, because that's why these groups or these governments can implement all these different groups, because people don't feel at home these days with their own parents. They'd rather go out and join some sort of group and start some trouble. I think that's a big problem with a lot of the religious factions as well. I'll just leave it at that because, yeah, I'm rambling and I'm all new to this. So thank you for having me on.
Well done, lad. Well done.
Well played,
yeah,
sir.
Yeah.
Oh.
No, carry on, sir.
Oh yeah. No, I was gonna say, no, dude. Hey, you're a natural at this and everything. It's always good to have a good group of blokes and even a couple of gals around too. It is 2018, and you can identify with whatever you want: a table, a cat, a dragonkin. Hey, man, it doesn't matter as long as you're out there good doing some good stuff in the world. You ain't hurting another human being. Don't really have a problem with that. But I ain't gonna do anything really new or exciting. I'm just gonna go back to the same old stuff I always say. It's when you boil it down, guys, we really are all more similar than we are different. Aside from a couple of strands of protein, we pretty much are the same. But we do each have our own unique life experience as well. The path each of us has walked has been so different, but we are all here right now. And I mean, that really means something. And I have to err on, I believe most folks are good people. And I had a good discussion the other night with Mr. MCJK about that. And to be fair, he did use my words against me, and he's got me thinking about a lot of things. And I think that's what's truly about what we're doing here right now, having different opposing viewpoints so we can kind of just hammer things out, call it the Hegelian dialect, call it just living life. I mean, that's what it's all about. But we got to remember, even if most folks are good people, we all do stupid shit. I do it every single day. I think most everyone on here, at least once in their life, has done something kind of dumb. Hey, it happens. But when you get down to it, it's just people are going to act in their self-interest. And I mean, that's just something, if you keep that model in mind, I think most things make sense. And that's all I got to say about that. Thanks, guys.
And to add to what Prankster Locke said earlier, how am I supposed to follow that voice? Like, honestly, we need to renegotiate the contract.
Yeah.
But and to everyone that
y'all
spoke
switched
before,
it around anyway. I think it was supposed to go first.
Yeah, no, I'm the same with memes, but it just is the ability that I've got to the point in my life where I can openly just throw out all the insanity in my mind to people, and I'll keep harping on about it, and people will just go, well, this is a good reason, this is a good reason, that is just do that for yourself as individuals. Just keep doing that for yourself as individuals. They're lying to us, we all know it. Just be aware of it. Keep your eyes open. Thank you, Mr. Ogre, for having me on. Thank you, Mr. CSG, for having me on. Thank you, panel, for discussing these things. Sharati earlier, thank you for being there. It's just, without these things, I personally wouldn't learn anything. And that's why I love being on these chats. If you just want to learn something, go for it. Get in there, talk to people, and do what you can. But just always be aware that there's something going on. We're not quite sure what it is yet, but we know it's wrong. Just always be aware. Thank you, and chat. Peace.
Well said, mate. Well said. I don't really have too much to say. Actually, honestly, this time I really don't have too much to say. Just a simple fact that if we are going to do things like these conspiracy nights or Quinspercy nights, as we do, and yes, I did say do, we're going to have to, as I said at the beginning, we have to put ourselves in different perspectives. Because I don't believe in most of the stuff that comes out here, and I'm sure most of you guys don't believe in the same stuff. But even if you do, that's the point. We still have to put ourselves in other people's positions. I think this is a great mental exercise to be able to understand different people's political points. Because as Beams has suggested and said many times, we do this for simple reasons. Because we believe that it makes things better. And whether we believe that these conspiracy theories are going to make things better or make things worse, or whether we believe somebody's politics, somebody's ideologies are going to make things better or worse. That's the point. It's always going to be somebody thinking it's going to make it better. Doesn't mean that it's going to be for a good reason or a bad reason. Generally, it's for either a selfish reason or an unselfish reason. Because there's no such thing as good and evil. It's only selfish and unselfish. If you're going to help somebody, then yes, you're being unselfish and you are helping the world. And in the perception of us, great, good, well done. If you're going to be unselfish, though, we perceive that as bad because we feel and we are taught that we are supposed to look after everybody. Because we are a community animal. We are a troop. That's the reason why we use that word when we're going to war. We are a troop. Because that's what we are. We are all one social engineered animal. And that's what we have to remember. As Memes has already said, we do have more in common than what divides us. And we have to remember that. So, with that being said, thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Common Sense Guy. I thank you, constant viewer, for being here today. It was nice to be back on the main channel. And though you all probably didn't notice, Common Sense Guy and I did, it was nice to have our normal congregation back. And we know that more of you will dribble in dribs and drabs, and we welcome each one of you with open arms because I refer you back to my mate's speech previous. I cannot say it better than he did, so I will not try. And in that same vein, we talked about many things today, and I could try to be, the great orator that I am in my dreams, the great man with perfect erudition that stands before the mob and never falls, that never speaks an errant word, never stumbles or says But I am not that man. So I humbly turn over my last words to a truly great man, a man among ants at a time when men were truly greater than they are today. Mr. Teddy Roosevelt, would you please take the reins? It is not the critic who counts, not the man who points out how the strong man stumbles or where the doer of deeds could have done them better. The credit belongs to the man who is actually in the arena, whose face is marred by dust and sweat and blood, who strives valiantly, who errs, who comes up short again and again, because there is no effort without error and shortcoming, but who does actually strive to do the deeds, who knows great enthusiasms, the great devotions, who spends himself in a worthy cause, who at the best knows in the end the triumph of high achievement, and who, at the worst, if he fails, at least fails while daring greatly, so that his place shall never be with those cold and timid souls who know neither victory or defeat. Thank you, Mr. Roosevelt. Your words echo through the mists of time up to our present era and hold weight today as they did in the age you spoke them. And remember, folks, be good to your friends, be good to your family members, be good to your loved ones. Be quick to say you're sorry. Be even quicker to accept an apology, especially when that thing your friend, your family member, your loved one has done seems to be so huge you'll never be able to forget about it. Because, constant viewers, my beloved Common Sense Guy, at a time you think not, your friends, your family members, your loved ones, your life, and everything you know and hold dear, including your live stream, will depart from you.